Let's get started, and we will start with, last meetup was getting started with data science. Today, we are basically focusing on making data useful for machine learning. And this is first part because in 1 hour or 1.5 hours, we cannot cover everything that I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about. So it is going to take time. So that's why it is first part, and we will have more sessions, and in which I will be taking forward this discussion. And this is anyhow getting recorded, so it will be available on our YouTube channel. So in case you miss any of our sessions in the future meetups, then you can always go through the recordings later on. I am Bhavuk Chawla, and I'm founder of this company, Data Couch, and we are based in Chandigarh right now, and we have an office in Malaysia also. So we have a distributed team. So I did my Google ML engineer certification in the beta phase itself, and I also did data engineering certification long back 2017, and then I renewed that data engineer certification in 2019. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you will find the details about the certifications. I've done more than 25 certifications, um, like in data, machine learning, and data analysis. I see there is a question on the chat. So it is my request that please send questions to everyone, so that if I am answering any question, then it should not happen that I did not explain what is the question and then I started answering directly. So it is my request. It will be great if you can ask questions to everyone so that others can also contribute. So there is a question. Question is, will we get a certificate for this? So are you saying like the certificate, the Google certificate, are you referring? Like if you can elaborate, any Jen? Are you referring to Google certificate, or do you want to share, yeah, for attending this workshop? Okay, so there is no certificate as such. It is, this meetup is more for learning. So you can understand, like when you go to a meetup, it's more for networking perspective. It is more for learning something new. So this workshop is for these two purposes. And it is just like a social contribution from our company side. So we spend some time, like once in 2 weeks, to share knowledge so that it takes you to the next level. So uh, I think like you may appear for Google certification, or you may appear for AWS certification, or any certification related to data science in future, right? So this workshop will help you in understanding the basic concepts behind cleansing the data, and then you can apply those things maybe in various. Cloudera also offers a certification for data analysis, but the technologies are different in Cloudera. So you may appear for those certifications, and then you can acquire those certifications based on your skills. So we will see, like whenever we get chance, so we can conduct a workshop on specifically like Cloudera data analyst certification. We can have a workshop on Google machine learning certification. So we can have separate sessions for that. So let's get started. So today's agenda is like we will not be discussing who is a data scientist. We already covered that in the previous session. So I'm assuming you will be watching the recording. If you have not watched that recording previously, like we have already shared that recording on the YouTube channel. So we will directly move into data manipulation, and we will use pandas for data manipulation. So that is the goal that we will be having today. So we will also be looking into like what are the various ways of data cleansing, and then we will be discussing the next steps. So let's see. The very first thing, like this is my background. My name is Bhavuk Chawla. I have over 16 years of experience, and I have uh, done various workshops for different companies, including Microsoft, Google, Starbucks Coffee, Adobe, and many other companies. I was recognized by Cloudera as the instructor of the year 2016. I was recently recognized by Pluralsight as an elite instructor. So that is 2020 award that I got from Pluralsight, and you will find other details on my LinkedIn profile. So I would request everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. So let's get started. So this is my company, and we are into different domains. We are into big data, machine learning, deep learning, data science, DevOps, and cloud infrastructure. So we have conducted various workshops across globe, and we have trained more than 10,000 participants now. So it's been like so many years we are doing these things. So we are into various areas, including big data, data science, AI, ML, and other areas that are mentioned here, right? So let's get started. So these are some of the pictures of the workshops that we have conducted. So let's move on. We discussed in the last meetup who is a data scientist. So I'm moving on. So we also covered the data science life cycle in the last meetup. So our objective today is to see some code, because that was theory in the last meetup, a lot of theory. And the prerequisites for this meetup were Python and Anaconda. So I'm assuming you have installed Anaconda, or you are good with Python. So these are the two prerequisites. So now, we are focusing today only on data manipulation, and we are focusing on how to clean the data. And cleansing data is very much important for getting a successful machine learning project. The objectives are met and the results are good. Then if you want to achieve that, for a successful machine learning, AI, or data science project, you need to have clean data, or you need to do data cleansing. And 60% of the time will be going into those kind of activities. Like some people say 80%, but I would say 60%, because there will be some time going into acquisition of data, and there will be time going into many other activities that I discussed in the previous meetup. Right. So the recording is available on our YouTube channel. But right now, I am just saying that around 60% of the time goes into these activities. So data can come from different sources, and it can be internal sources or it can be external sources. It can be coming from Twitter. Twitter gives very nice APIs like Twitter streaming API, through which you can acquire data from Twitter. You can also get data from weather, right? So you can get data from so many websites from where like you can easily download, like there are government websites, and there are like Kaggle, you can download the data from there. So there are many sources from where you can get the data for performing experiments. But in an enterprise, when you are working, so you will have some external sources and some internal sources. So internal sources can be like CRM, like system, customer relationship management, or maybe you have other systems like maybe CSV files or log files, or maybe you have sensor based data. So data can be coming from different sources. So data manipulation is important so that our machine learning algorithms gives us good results. And what is the definition of good results that we actually define in the very beginning of the project, like when we say a project is successful. So these discussions we had in the previous meetup. So I will quickly move on to the code, the coding part. So I hope this is fine. And we will be using these tools. So I will be using this Anaconda distribution, and that is one of the prerequisites for this meetup. And we will be using Pandas library. So when we talk about data cleansing, so data cleansing will be done through different types of knives. So you are a chef in the kitchen, and if you remember that analogy that we discussed in the previous meetup, then I mentioned this thing like you are a data scientist, and when you are a data scientist, you are like a chef, and chef will be using different types of knives to clean the data. So there is a knife for peeling potato and there is a knife for cutting tomato. So these two knives, they have their own roles. So similarly, we have Pandas, we have Spark SQL, we have TensorFlow pre-processing libraries, we also have BigQuery, we have Snowflake, we have so many other technologies, Hive, Impala. So there are so many other technologies. So you can say that there are so many technologies, and these are different knives in the kitchen. So you may be using a smaller knife, or you may be using a bigger knife depending on the requirements. If you are working with big data, then you will be going for those knives which can help you in processing like big data. For example, Spark is very popular these days, right? So we can have a meetup on Spark also. But for the time being, just understand, like in a kitchen, you will have different types of knives, and we will be using these knives for cleansing the data. So today we are using a small knife, which is Pandas, and we will be cleansing our data with that. Yeah. So if you are okay, then let's move on and let's see what are the typical steps involved in data cleansing. So when we talk about using a knife, so we are in a kitchen, and in this kitchen, we will be cleansing our data. We will be reprocessing our data. So let me give you a holistic view, and then we will move to the code. So very first thing, this is like one of the courses that is published on our website, but just see, this is the pipeline that I'm referring to. So this is the big data pipeline. In this big data pipeline, we have data integration layer, we have data ingestion layer, we have storage layer, we have processing layer, analysis layer, exploration layer, and serving layer. So we are right now focusing on data pre-processing or data cleansing, right? And this is more for from big data perspective. These are bigger knives. These are bigger knives when you are having big data. But when you have small data, then you can use the tool that we are using in this meetup, which is called Pandas. So I wanted to show you this picture because you get a holistic view, like with what all things are involved when we talk about a pipeline, data pipelines, right? So this is like something which is done by data engineers typically, but data scientists are also involved in cleansing the data depending on the organization, like how the teams are structured. But you will find there are a lot of helpers in the kitchen. So the chef will have a lot of assistants. So you can assume like data engineers are like assistants or helping data scientists to clean the data, because data scientists will have some dependency. I was working for one of the clients in UAE, and there was a ratio, like one data scientist was dependent on 10 data engineers. And you can understand, like they were basically looking to optimize this ratio from 1:10 to 1:4. So that was their 5-year plan. So what they wanted to achieve was like data scientists, they were dependent too much on the helpers in the kitchen. Like data scientist is a chef, and chef is dependent on the helpers in the kitchen. There were like one data scientist dependent on 10 helpers. So we want to reduce that ratio from 1:10 to 1:4, and then eventually going into self-service analytics, so that data scientists will be doing most of the things on its own. But it is not so easy to achieve because you require data engineering skills to like actually process the data. So it has like a different role requirement, and we discussed some of these things in the previous meetup also. So I hope you got some idea, holistic view. If you have any questions, in case I'm moving fast, please do let me know. But if you got it, like then we can actually move on to the next part, which is like going into the Anaconda and looking into various things. So if you have any questions on this, please let me know. I hope you are clear, like we have to clean the data, and there are many knives in the kitchen. And right now we will be using a small knife, which is Pandas, rather than big knives. But I wanted to show you some big knives also. Okay, what is the data pipeline? Is this steps process? Okay, so very quickly, it's a quick crash course in the data pipeline. So this is data integration. So you are connecting with relational databases, CSV files, SFTP servers, or maybe APIs, or there can be n number of sources in your company through which you are integrating. And after that, you are ingesting data. You are like your data can be like in motion. It can be streaming data, or it can be like static data. So you are bringing that data into your ecosystem, or you can say data lake. And this data lake, you are storing the data in Hadoop distributed file system, or you are storing it in NoSQL databases like MongoDB, Cassandra, or Elastic, like sorry, MongoDB, Cassandra, or maybe some other maybe there are so many other databases. So you are storing your data, and then you are processing your data, you are cleansing your data, and then you are analyzing your data, right? So today we will be looking into processing and analysis, but through a different knife, which is a smaller knife, which is Pandas. And then we are exploring data, and then we are visualizing or serving the data. Does it help, like Michael, what exactly it is? Okay. No problem. This basically means data collection and data storing the data, processing the data, cleansing the data, and then you are creating some dashboards. You are visualizing the data. You are exploring the data, searching the data. So it's like end-to-end pipeline that I have just shared. But don't worry, actually the today's meetup is about data processing, but I wanted to give you holistic view. If you are not very clear, we can discuss after we are done with other things, and then you can clarify it more. You can take a screenshot, and then we can discuss this more. Yeah. So let me move on. Yeah. And here, this is my Anaconda environment. And I'm assuming everyone is having this in place. And if this is in place, then we are going directly into the Anaconda notebook. So Jupyter Lab. So I'm using Jupyter Lab notebook. So when you click here in the Jupyter Lab, then you will be able to launch this Jupyter Lab like this in the browser itself. So if you have any questions like how do we launch it, how do we install it, then do let me know. Otherwise, I will move on to the Jupyter Lab. So if you are fine, then you can mark your status as green so that I can move to the next step. So I'm assuming everyone is on the same page and we can move on. So I'm here in the Jupyter Lab and I gave the introduction to this Jupyter Lab in my Python tutorial that is there on our YouTube channel. So I will directly go into the notebook. So I will create a new notebook and I will just simply say that there is an ops file new notebook. So I'm creating this notebook here. Dismiss. I will close this and I will relaunch it once. So let me close it and I will launch it again. So this is launching Jupyter Notebook and you can see the port is now different because 888 4 times 8 is already occupied because last process did not terminate well gracefully. Okay, so
Bhavin,
yeah.
one question is actually there is some error coming and the error is like some access to while launching to the Jupyter lab. So can I use the Jupyter notebook for now? I mean, is it okay?
Harshit, like we can look into that error. So this error usually comes when you are not having sudo permissions. So another option is to do it through command line. So if you want, you can use Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, absolutely okay. But I think that you will get the error while launching Jupyter Notebook also. If you are having this error, then it is more related to permission. You can try that if it is working, but otherwise we can look into that error after this, like
Sure,
once done with the hand.
sure. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Like you give sudo in front of that while launching. So instead of doing it through the UI, you can launch it via command line, and in command line you can provide sudo, then you will be able to launch this. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so you can use Colab also. That is another kitchen, so it's fine. So any option is fine. Like Harshit, if you don't want to do it in this way, you can use Google Colab. That is also a good option. So so we are getting started, and I'm launching a notebook here, and I'm just saying that import pandas as PD. So this pandas we are importing, and this is a knife that we will be using in the kitchen, and we will be cleansing our data. So I already have a data folder here. So this data folder has many files. So one of the files is user TBL. This is a tab delimited, this is like a pipe delimited file. So we will be making use of this file, and we will be analyzing the data. We will be processing the data. So in this case, like I just imported pandas, and after that we are saying that we want to read this file. So there is a method, like if you see this pandas, when we say pd dot tab, so then you will get various options. Uh, so pd dot, you see various options are there. Like so if you go to the read CSV method, so I'm just going to the read method. So can you see there are so many methods to read data. So it can read from clipboard, it can read CSV, it can read Excel file. It is feather is another format. FWF means fixed width format, another format. Google BigQuery format, so HDF format, HTML format, JSON format, ORC format. So there are so many options here, right? So we are interested in reading a delimited file. So we will be going for an option which is called read CSV. So this read CSV method gives us the option to read data, which is like it looks like it will only read the CSV file, but actually the CSV, the separator is comma here. Separator is comma. That means like by default, if you don't specify anything, then it will treat separator as comma. So you can always give another separator if required. So you can say that I want to do this thing, like maybe my data is in the data folder. So my data. So I'm just giving under dot current data slash, and then we have user dot tbl, right? And then I am saying that the delimiter here is pipe. So I'm passing the separator also here. So this separator is basically telling me that this is not a comma delimited, but it is. Uh, so I'm creating a table or data frame. So when I say df dot, maybe you will find like we have many methods. So you can actually run df dot count, or you can run various methods. So I'm doing df dot count. So it is showing me count of each and every columns. And we also have many other options. Like if I just do df, then it is like a data frame, and it is showing me like how many rows are there, right? So it is able to figure out like there are 943 rows and there are 5 columns. So if I go to my data, and here if I scroll down, you will find how many rows are there, like 944, because there is one header. So it is automatically able to infer that, and it is able to understand. So if you do df.info, so it is able to create a table from this data, and it is able to tell me like there are 943 rows and there are 5 columns. So these 5 columns are user ID, age, gender, occupation, and zip code, and 1 2 3 4 5, right? So it is able to tell me that. And when you do df.info or df.describe, then it will show me more information about this. So it is telling me like we have 5 columns, and these are the columns, and these are 2 are basically numeric, and these 3 are categorical data. So because gender, occupation, zip code, it's and like categorical here, and this one is numeric. So it is automatically able to infer the schema from the data itself. So does it make sense like what exactly is happening? Like, are we clear? Like read CSV is reading data from the CSV file, and it is able to tell me this, right? So if you are not very clear, please ask, but I am assuming this is straightforward. Like you are able to get you are able to read data in pandas, and you are able to get the data types and other details like column names and other things. You can say df.describe. So when you do df.describe, then it will only show the numeric columns. So it is not going to show categorical unless or until you pass. Uh, yeah. So okay, great. So you passed. So you have describe. So describe is basically descriptive statistics. So descriptive statistics, that means like it is giving you the mean, it is giving you the standard deviation, minimum value, 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, or max. So it is giving us these details. So if I just make it bigger, and if we go to, there is an option here in the describe. So you can see in describe method, we have include all option. So what I can do here is like I can pass include all. So when I do include all, can you see earlier when you are using describe, then it is not showing me categorical data. So these 3 are categorical. So it is not showing me categorical data. But if I do include all, then it is showing me the categorical data also. But descriptive statistics does not make sense for categorical data. It does make sense for the numerical data, because average of gender does not make sense, right? So average of occupation does not make sense. So that's why by default describe actually shows the descriptive statistics for the numeric data, and those 2 numeric columns are shown here. So I hope this is fine. Like you are able to get some idea, and you are also able to get this information that there are 943 entries, and 943 exist for all the columns. So there is nothing missing. So we are able to get to know like if there is anything missing or not. If there is anything missing, then we will be doing some missing data handling, right? So we will be cleansing the data, but right now this data is fine. We are just getting started, so we are working with very clean data, but we will have some more examples coming up wherein we are imputing the data. So for the time being, I hope you are clear. Like we are just exploring our data, we are understanding our data. So we are just looking at various things, like we have many methods. So you can say df dot maybe shape, and when you do that, then you will be able to get 943 and 5. Similarly, you can have type of df. Let's say I want to show you what is a type of df. Can you see this type is data frame? It is not like Python data type. So if you watch the video recordings of my Python tutorial on our YouTube channel, so there we have 19 videos right now, but I will be adding more. But for the time being, just understand, like in Python tutorial, I explained various data types provided by Vanilla Python or Python core. So I explained dictionary, I explained list, I explained tuple and many other data set, and frozen set and many other data types. But right now we are going beyond those data types, and we are talking about this pandas data frame, and this type is df, and this is how it looks like. So it is not Python core, or it is not like vanilla Python. It is a specialized library. Pandas is a specialized library for doing data analysis or data processing, and it also provides some capabilities of performing data visualization. So pandas give you many methods to perform these activities of data processing, data analysis, time series analysis, and also like data visualization. So pandas provide you these kind of methods. So if you look at DF, then you can always do head, tail, and you can run it. So you can, this head will show you first 5 records, and you can always pass df.head, and you can pass an argument head, and then you're passing 10. I want to see 10 records rather than 5, because by default it shows 5, but you can always say I need to see more records, right? So this option is also very useful for understanding your data. Any questions till now?
So Babu, is there any possibility that you can share this data folder? I mean, that the data you're using?
Okay, let me do it once here in the, let me see if I can upload some data here. Let me see.
Maybe it is available somewhere in Git library, so you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
download.
yeah. You can download from my GitHub, like it's there. I will send the link. Give me a second.
Yeah, yeah, that.
And then I'm just sending it over the chat. Okay. So this is public, so you can get this data. You can download this data, right? So I hope this is fine. Like you got some idea, and we have seen some info also. So another thing is like we talked about the data frame. So if I go back to the whiteboard, because I I think like whiteboard will help you like understanding what we are doing. So pandas we discussed is a small knife, and we are using this knife for cleansing our data, and this is for data pre-processing, and we are using it for analysis also, and we are using it for visualization later on, and it can be used for many other purposes like time series analysis and many other things, right? So like you want to have like when we say data pre-processing, so I'm just writing here time series related time series related functions are there, methods are there. So it helps us in doing that kind of processing also. So just understand when we say data pre-processing, that means maybe you are deduplicating your data, you are cleansing your data, that means you are handling missing data, or you are understanding if there is missing data or not. And then handling missing data means maybe you are removing the missing data, or you are imputing the missing data. And within imputation we have many strategies of imputation, so we will see that. Apart from that, you can do many other things through pandas, like outlier detection you want to do, so you can use pandas for that. So there are many things under pre-processing. I will explain that in more detail, but for the time being, just understand like we are talking about when we say processing, then it is about these things. And when we say analysis, actually I'm talking about maybe you want to find out top maybe top 5 products. This is an example of analysis, uh, like which are very popular among your customers, right? So you want to do maybe key regions where you want to target, like, so this is like analysis related things. Like through SQL also we do a lot of data analysis, right? So pandas is like using Python we are able to do it in a programmatic. So visualization, like you can have charts, graphs, and we will see like when we are having a session on data visualization, then we will see like which chart to choose when. So we are going to discuss that visualization, which chart to choose when, and we are going to have that kind of discussion. So basically, it provides those methods. Now there is a question on the chat. Pre-processing could also mean preparing data for analysis. Absolutely, you are right, Michael. So it is it that when we are doing pre-processing, so this pre-processing, and then you are using it for data analysis, or maybe you are using for data exploration. So when you are pre-processing, sorry, sorry. So when you are using this pre-processing, so you are pre-processing, so you can use data maybe for machine learning. After pre-processing, you are using it for machine learning your data, right? This is for predictive analytics, right? Or maybe uh, uh, then you may be using for, maybe you are using for business intelligence. um, this is like you are creating a dashboards for your end users. You may be using it for that. You may be using it for some downstream system, or you can use it for maybe your uh, after doing pre-processing, you are using it for this data analysis. right? You are using it for data analysis, so that is another. So this is another, and then you are using it for maybe some visualization, data visualization, and that can be another path to this only. But that is another thing. And then you can also use this in other ways also. So I will keep it simple for the time being because we want to focus more on code. So I'm just sharing with you, like you can also use it for other things, like for example, you are having search. So maybe Elasticsearch. So data exploration or searching data, right? So you are doing data pre-processing. For example, Google will do the data pre-processing for the web, and it will index the web. So you are indexing the data, and then you are making that available to your end users who are non-technical, who will be using the search dashboard to explore the data. So that can be another thing. Like this can be Elasticsearch or Kibana, through Elasticsearch. After that, you can use Kibana to visualize it. So after that, there will be visualization again. After this, there will be visualization. So and then after machine learning, you can deploy that machine learning model for your end customer to consume. So I hope you got it. Like Michael, data pre-processing is very helpful in multiple use cases, not just for data analysis. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going back to the discussion that we were having. So this is my DF, and in this DF, we can always say DF. So we want to refer to a column name, so you can say DF dot user ID. So this is one way of referring to this. So another way of referring to this is like you can always say, I want to use this user ID. So there are two ways to referring to a column. So both are same. So if you see, you can say df dot. This is one way of referring to a column. Another way of referring to the column is df, and then you are giving the column name. So in case you are having space, because column names can have a space. Right now, that is not the case, but you will find some cases coming up wherein we will find there is a there is a space in between, like user and ID. There is a space. Then it makes sense to go for this kind of notation because this will take care of that part. But if you have a space, then don't go for this, right? So you can always say that I want to see the type of this. Let's say I'm taking this example because both are same. These two are same. So I'm just taking type. So in pandas, we talked about data frames. So if I go back to pandas, so pandas, primarily you will find there are two types. Primarily I'm writing. So these are very common. So one is series, another one is data frame. So data frame, we have just seen, like we have seen the types. So these are not vanilla Python types. Vanilla Python types. Vanilla Python types. These are like pandas types, right? So these are under pandas. If you see, this is under pandas. It is not under vanilla Python, right? So this is another type, and it is nothing but when we talk about series, series is nothing but series is basically a NumPy array. So I did not talk about NumPy, but don't worry about it. So this is an array, NumPy array plus indexed NumPy array. So plus index. So if you see, this is an array. So this is an array. So array means like it's of homogeneous type. So in list, we can have heterogeneous types, but in array, we will have homogeneous type. So NumPy is another library, which is called numerical Python, and it is a Lego. It is like a base for so many other technologies like pandas and TensorFlow, and you will find in a lot of other technologies, NumPy is being used. So it is a fundamental or base. So just understand this thing, like this is an index, and index, if you want to see the index, you can say df dot index. You can get this 0 to 943. There is an index associated with data frame or series. So this is index, and this is the data, right? So when I say series is combination of NumPy array plus index, so this is an index and this is NumPy array. And when I say array, that means it is an optimized array, which is very much like very much convenient to work with when we do matrix multiplication and when we apply some numerical computation. So it is very fast and very convenient. So vanilla Python was not having any array data type earlier. So that's why NumPy was introduced to ensure that the numerical computation is fast and very convenient. So we don't have to run different loops when you have to multiply matrices. Very simple example I'm giving, but just understand NumPy is making our lives easier by providing various methods of matrix multiplication. So you can just simply multiply in just one line rather than writing nested for loops. So that is one way, one advantage, and second advantage is it is very, very fast. So I hope you are getting some sense of it. Like we are going beyond the Python core. We are going beyond vanilla Python. We are talking about NumPy and Pandas, and these are basically building blocks for so many other libraries in machine learning and deep learning. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will just move on to the next part, and that is something related to maybe we can talk about quickly, like how do we find out, how do we apply various methods, and how do we work with maybe some of these attributes. Okay, so we have df.age. So when we do df.age, you see like we have this age and we have length 943. So let's say I want to find out the average age. So we have various methods in NumPy. So it is giving me this average age, and similarly we can have median, we can have mod and other things, but mean makes sense when it comes to numeric data. So when I was saying df.describe, let's say we are doing describe on one single column. So can you see, I can do describe on data frame, or I can do describe on series, because df.age will give me series. df.age will give me series. If you want to see the type, we have just seen the type also for one of the columns. So it is giving me series. So I can apply describe method on the series, or I can apply describe method on the data frame. And data frame, we have already applied the describe method earlier. So just understand this thing, like when we are looking at the descriptive statistics, you will find average. What is the average? 34 point this, and this average matches with this average that we are able to get through this mean. Right. So there are various ways. So this is like again given by the pandas only, this method mean, but NumPy has many other interesting methods related to mean, median, mode, percentile, and quartile, and many other things like. So this is like another example, like when we talk about pandas, so we are also getting a lot of methods for we are also getting a lot of methods for statistics related methods. Very helpful, very convenient. So directly we can apply, right? So this is an example that we just saw, like we saw one example, very simple example, mean. But when we have a statistics class or when a session, or then we will discuss this in more detail. But for the timing, we are discussing like a holistic perspective around pandas, right? So this is fine. Like we can also do df dot, and then we have a option which is called histogram, and we can also pass number of bins. So you can see like we are able to plot histogram. So this example is related to the visualization that I was talking about. So pandas gives us this option of data visualization, and we are able to plot this age. And we see that our users are distributed, because when we look at the table, it is not so easy to understand our data, explore our data. So as a data scientist, you will be looking at the distribution of your data. So you want to understand what is the age of my user, and when I'm building my machine learning model, whether this data is useful or not, because like algorithms, they have some assumptions. So not all algorithms can work with all type of data. So it requires some pre-processing. So it is required that whenever you are choosing a machine learning model, then you have to see like if your data is actually useful for that particular machine learning model or not. So you are understanding the data distribution, and there are many other advanced plots that we can plot. Maybe when we are having data visualization discussion, then we will be looking into that. But for the time being, just understand, I'm giving you ability, like understanding like pandas also provides data visualization capability, and we are able to apply it on this particular series, and we are able to see how my users are distributed, right? So if you are okay, if you are clear with this thing, then we move on and we start discussing like the data, how it is distributed. So let's say we have df dot maybe gender, and we want to see values count. So there is a method called values count. You can run it. So this is like values count. Let's do one thing like df.gender. df.gender. I think I made a mistake here. So this is just small change. Small change I need to do. Yeah, so you can see like we have a gender, and gender has male 670 and females are 273. And this is showing us that there are 670 males in my data set, and 273 are females in my data set. So when you are building your machine learning model, then it is very much important to understand your data, because if you are having such this is unbalanced data set. This is called unbalanced data set. And when we say unbalanced data set, that means these two classes, like males are more and females are less in our data set. So like teaching a machine is like teaching a kid. So you are showing kids or a machine, so like more males. So that means your machine learning model will be biased towards males more, and it will understand that pattern more. So in general, if you see the real world also, like when we talk about fraud detection, yeah, so yeah, so both are same. So if you want to do it like this, both are same. So you can always change, because you can refer to the this particular thing in two ways, right? So you can always say this is how both are same, right? So so there was a question on the chat, so I just answered that. So so this syntax you can learn anytime. Syntax is not difficult to learn, but important thing is you need to understand like why we are doing it, why we are looking at it, what is the advantage of looking at this particular thing. So what are the takeaways, like how we should relate it with the final, because our goal is not to and see the data, and our goal is to build machine learning models. Our goal is to deploy machine learning models, monitor those machine learning models. That is the end goal. And for that, we are looking at our data, we are exploring our data, and we see that our data has a problem right now. The problem is our data is having more males, less females. That means my machine learning model will be influenced by males more rather than females. So this is something which we need to fix before we actually give it to the machine learning model. So I'm just sharing with you like one problem, and then we will see in future like how do we do it. But for the time being, I hope you are clear with the problem. And then if you see, like I'm just using the same thing, and then I'm just changing it to zip code. So we have zip code. Now you see there is another problem here in our data. The data is having like zip codes, and this zip codes, if you see um, have you heard about high cardinality? Have you ever heard about high cardinality data? What is high cardinality data? Cardinality. What is high cardinality? Anyone, have you heard about it? Have you high cardinality data? Okay, so if you are coming from database background, then you must have heard about it. Like high cardinality means column having too many distinct values. Distinct values is basically high cardinality data. So this will cause lot of confusion, lot of problem for machine learning, because when you are having too many, so let's say you are teaching a kid. So when we say, let's say I take one example of US elections. And let's say you are working in a political domain and you want to predict who will win the election, US election. And you know that in US, people are coming from different regions. So some people are coming from maybe India, some people are coming from China, some people are coming from US. They are there like, so there is a column called native, let's say. And this native, we have, let's say you are a domain expert, and you know that in this column we have some people are from US, some people are from India, some people are from China, some people are from UK, some people are from Greece. So different domain in different countries, people are there, native country, right? So one option is I have two options now. Let's say option number one is I give native country as input to ML model. I give this native country as input to ML model. Option number two is option number 2 is to clean the data. So my option number 2 is to pre-process the data. Instead of native country, I will give a transformed, this is new column, which is a new feature, and we are saying that this native country we are having machine learning model. Option 2 is you do some pre-processing and get a new column. I'm not giving any name right now. You can say like this is a new feature, so you can say transformed column or transformed country. So whatever you think is like based on your domain, you can give any name, but for the time being, just understand you are giving that as ML model. So this is like my pre-processing. So I am doing some pre-processing here and I'm cleansing. So this option is one option and this is second option. So when I do pre-processing, so what I'm doing right now, this data is having high cardinality. So can you see this is having high cardinality?
So, Bhavuk, one question. Sorry to interrupt you.
No
You
problem.
said that high cardinality, I mean, is not good for the machine learning, right? Why is it so? I mean, I just want to
Okay.
understand.
Yeah. So Harshit, like one thing you need to understand here is like it depends on your domain. So right now I'm talking about a domain in which we are having a scenario. We are a domain expert. Let's say you are a domain expert, and you know that there are two cases. One case is, let's say you are having a new column. I'm giving that name, and I will explain that. No need to worry. So let's say we have this. If I simplify this to US or other, right? So if I can transform this native country to a new native country, so this is a new column. So if I can simplify this, then what will happen? My machine learning model will learn this thing faster. So there is a concept called feature engineering. I'm talking about a concept called feature engineering. And do you remember, like in our last discussion in the, if you go to the data science life cycle, there is a concept called feature engineering. If there should be here, this feature engineering, right? So I'm explaining this part right now. Yeah. So yeah. So option 2 is for process data. So when I'm saying we are doing data cleansing, data pre-processing, so feature engineering is basically simplifying inputs to machine learning model, to ML model, so that ML model can train faster, can train faster, right? So it can train with it can be trained with less amount of data, with less amount of data. It can be like it can give you better accuracy or better results. I'm writing accuracy, but that is not the only metric. But I'm just writing accuracy, for example, accuracy, right? So we are having this target of simplifying inputs to the machine learning model. So when I'm teaching a machine learning model, it's like teaching a kid. Teaching a machine learning model is teaching a kid. When you are teaching a kid, so if you show so many distinct values and they don't actually contribute, you are a political domain expert, and you know that um, people coming from different countries, they don't actually contribute. So by basic assumption here is you are a domain expert and you have this understanding that India, China, UK, Greece, they all will vote for a particular party. They have some inclination. So that maybe people coming from native, they are like US, they will vote for certain party. So you have that background, right? So if you have such background, you are a political domain expert, and you know that, so why not we simplify this input? Why not we do some feature engineering, and then it will help us in training this machine learning model with less amount of data. That makes sense?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so when you pre-process, yeah, Michael, you are right. Like option 2 is basically pre-processed data. So if you give this as input to ML model, this is the new column. If you give this as input to ML model, then ML model will train faster with better results with less amount of data. So if I go back here, so if you see, there is a zip code, and there are so many distinct values of zip code, and you know that you are working for, let's say, predicting customer churn. So when you are predicting customer churn, and you know that like for this particular zip code, people will hardly leave because we have so many stores open, and you are a domain expert, so you have some understanding, like maybe for these particular zip codes, maybe you have like maybe outside. So let's say within New York, and outside New York. So maybe you are predicting taxi fare, and you know that within New York or outside New York, people will tend to leave my taxi services because I charge more. Maybe you have that, you are a domain expert, so you want to try that experiment also. So what you will do, like zip codes which are within New York, you will say yes, there is a boolean or variable you can define, so you can have a new column. In that case, that new column will be called indicator variable. So I am actually explaining one more feature engineering technique of maybe defining indicator variable. And this indicator variable is a new column. And this new column is basically saying that, let's say these are so many zip codes. For each zip code, you are saying, if it is within New York, then you are saying yes. If it is outside New York, you are saying no. So you have simplified the input to machine learning model so that the machine learning model can learn faster. Does it make sense? Like what exactly I'm saying here? We are simplifying input to the machine learning model. Yeah, Michael, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify when you refer to or when you say high cardinality, so meaning that we have a lot of distinct values, right? So many
Uh,
distinct values. So what do we do with those distinct values? Do we have to like remove them or sorry,
yeah.
I'm lost. Do we
No.
have to remove them or just focus on the data or on the data which we will be training?
Okay, so Michael, if you have high cardinality data, so first of all, you should be a domain expert. If you are not a domain expert, then you will not be successful in your data science project, right? So this is a very basic thing. In the previous meetup also, I stressed a lot on the domain expertise. So let's say you are a political domain expert, and you know that like it hardly matters if someone is coming from India or someone is coming from China or someone is
Yeah.
coming from Greece. It hardly matters, and these people are having some inclination towards a certain party in United States,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you may be having that perspective. Or second example that I gave was customer churn problem. Let's say you are a taxi, let's say Uber, and you know that your outstation trips, like people who are not taking outstation, like who are like, let's say zip code of the drop location is outside New York, and you know that these are special trips and you charge a lot because you have to pay
Uh-huh.
toll, for there can be a number of scenarios. So you know you have a because based on your domain you have certain inputs. So let's say instead of giving so many distinct value, why to confuse machine learning with so many distinct values? Why not we simplify those things? Why not we apply some transformation?
Uh-huh.
Why not
Uh-huh.
why not we apply, we create another column, and we simplify that input to the machine learning model. And this is also called feature engineering technique. And using feature engineering, you are able to ensure that the machine learning model is able to train faster.
Yeah, that's my follow-up question. So we are going to make a new like transform the data, right? So what do we do with those distinct values if there are too many distinct values?
Yeah, so you transform those distinct values into something which is like simpler. So can you see this is simpler? Instead of saying so many, like there are, let's say 200 plus countries. So
Uh-huh.
instead of saying 200 plus countries here, you will say other.
Okay.
You mapped these things to other.
So instead of like indicating every country, so since we are focused on US, like
Yeah,
native of the country, then we focus on US, then the other countries will be changed to others.
absolutely. This will be new column, and that new column will go as an input to machine learning model.
But why do we have to like repeat other in here? Can't we just like include them in just one category like others?
I will show you. Let's take this because right now you are not looking at the data. So let's say I'm here. Let's say this is my data. Let's say there are three columns and there are so many rows, right? So we have five rows, right? So I'm just giving a name. Let's say this is my gender, and this is my native country,
Mhm.
and this is maybe age, right? So this is my data. So US, India, China, Greece, right? So when I'm saying we are adding another column, so this is another column we are adding, and this column why we are having other again and again, because this is for each row. I hope you are able to get it now. If you are not very clear, please ask. New native, and this is US, other, 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 other. Are we clear? So when you are training your machine learning model, instead of passing this column, you will be passing gender, age, and new native rather than passing native. Are we clear? Why we are other again and again? This is for
Okay,
each.
so it has to be the same number with the original data, right?
Yeah,
So it
absolutely.
has to reflect. Okay, sure.
Yeah, this is called mapping. So you are able to map it. So this is one-to-one function. That means like you are applying some. There is an apply method in data frame. So using apply method, you can do it very easily. So I hope it is making sense, like what exactly I'm saying here.
Yeah,
It will
go
be.
ahead.
Yeah. So if you are not very clear, please feel free to ask, because it is not like one-way discussion that we want to have. It should be like helpful to you and should be able to get it. So if you are okay, Mike, and then you can mark your status as green, or Dipanch, are we okay? Then I will move on. Yeah, Dipanch.
So we have to use some if else condition in this one to change these values to transform.
So here you can write custom function also. So you can there is a method called apply. So using apply, you can always say that I want to change this particular series to some other value. So you can use apply, and you can pass lambda method, lambda function to transform the data. Right. So we will be coming onto all these examples because like this is part one. So it will be like multiple sessions which we'll be doing, and within those sessions this will be getting covered. So I will be coming to that also. And it is there in my GitHub also, if you see, but I will give you an example. Let's say, how do we do it? Let's say I take one example of, let's say I was talking about indicator variable. So let's say I am saying df dot, and I am saying under 20. So I'm giving another name. So I'm defining a new column. So I want to find out if a user is under 20. So I'm defining a new column here, and I'm saying this is df dot age dot apply. So you will be using apply method, and then you will be saying, are you saying something, Michael?
No, sorry, I already found it. Thank you.
So so we are saying that here, let's say we are able to apply something, and here, let's say we are saying df dot info, and let's say this is just a warning, and I'm adding a new column here. So we will be able to, so there is an apply method. So I will be using this approach. So right now I've written a very simple method of adding a new column here. So I'm just saying here should be something like this. So I'm saying under 20, and I'm defining it. And can you see I'm able to get a column under 20? And I can say df dot. Are you clear, Dipanch, what I'm saying here? Like what exactly is happening? Can you see these are not under 20? How do we do it? Like, okay, so for others, are we clear? Like, how do we do it? Are we clear? Like this mapping that I was talking about?
Yeah, we're clear.
Okay. So I just added another column, and I was mentioning about indicator variables. So we are able to define another indicator variables, which is like under 20, and it is there. Okay, so now I was thinking like we have so many other options of doing feature engineering, but before I move on, I want to understand like if you are okay, then we move to the next part, and this is uh, data pre-processing. So we have seen, so very first thing, like when we talk about data pre-processing, then we have, let's say, we have many steps involved. So let's say we have data ingestion, and then we have another step which is like data validation. So this is, you validate your data before you move to the next step. So after data ingestion, we'll be validating the data. So I'll be using like this, but I will avoid using arrow. So let's say after validation, you will be doing some kind of data filtering. This is data filtering. Dipanch, can you hear me? Like we were discussing this part. I'm not sure till what point you were able to. Diptansh,
Yeah, right now I'm able to see this.
okay, so I just added an int variable. So when we have to add a new column, so you can simply say df and then you are passing the column names. And you can see this new column is added here, and we are able to transform this age. Let's say age is a very special column in our data science project. So, like sometimes you will have a special treatment for this particular. Even age will have lot of distinct values if you see, because even if it is a numerical data, but it is having a lot of distinct values. Let's say you are predicting salary of a person. So if someone is say 28 years old or 29 years old, a lot of times the salary will be very similar, right? So it hardly matters. So that's why a lot of times you do this thing like below 20, you will say that the person is not earning at all, because that person is actually studying or student, right? And after 60, person is not earning, maybe retired and maybe getting pension, very small amount compared to the actual salary. And in between 20 to 60%, the person is actually the salary is increasing linearly or maybe whatever. So just understand like this is like we apply this lambda function, and this lambda function we are able to get indicator variable, and we are able to see like these are all false because age is greater than 20. So you can say age is greater than 30, so then you'll get another column. So the idea is like when we are talking about feature engineering, then I was referring to this particular thing. Like you will be writing a function. If you don't want to write lambda function, you can write your user defined function, and through that you can transform your data. I hope this is making sense, Diptansh.
Yes.
Okay. So now we are here, and we are talking about like the data pipeline or how to make data useful for machine learning. So there are multiple steps involved. And when I say multiple steps, that means like there are around 15, 20 steps involved here. So this is like data filtering, data deduplication, and we want to see all these things right happening in the code. And then we also have many other things like after data deduplication we also have maybe column pruning. So you want to drop off the unnecessary columns. And then we have so many other things like you are doing some kind of data exploration here. uh, this is you're exploring your data. Anyhow, this is a iterative process. So this is like iterative. It's not like one step, but I'm showing it as a one step, but don't worry about it. We will be doing data exploration a lot. So we will be using df.head, df.tail, df.info, and histogram and describe. So there are so many methods, right? So
I sorry, just a quick question. So are we discussing now the steps in the data cleansing?
yeah, how to
Like,
make data
okay,
useful for
so
ML.
it's like checking for inconsistent data, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, go
So
ahead. Thank you.
no problem. It's very good that you are clarifying in between so that we are on same page. So this is handling missing data. So I'm saying handling missing data, handling missing
And
data.
inconsistent data.
Absolutely. So we will bring data to consistent standards also. So bring data to data consistency is very important. For example, I will give you an example so that everyone comes on the same page. What is data consistency? So in one system, male is M, and another system, male is 0. So it happens like you are getting data from so many systems. So you have to bring it to the consistent standards. And then you have other things like maybe this one is handling outliers. Right? So this is another step. So there are many steps. So it cannot, this discussion cannot be completed because it is going to take 3 hours if I just explain on the whiteboard. And if even if we are not doing coding, then also it is going to take 3 hours. So for the time being, just understand, because there are multiple strategies of missing data handling. There are multiple strategies of outlier handling. And there are multiple other things like data exploration. Also, there are multiple ways. Even visualization of data is another area through which we explore our data, right? So so here, very first thing that you need to take away from this discussion is data ingestion is something which can happen in the batch mode or it can happen in the streaming mode. But right now I'm keeping it simple. I'm not saying real-time machine learning. We will see when we get a chance to talk about that. But for the time being, just understand you are ingesting the data and you are validating the data. So you are creating a workflow. You are understanding if your data is valid or not. If your data is not valid, then we will say that data quality is not good. So if we are passing garbage to our machine learning, then we will get bad output, right? So that will be garbage output. So we want to validate it in the very beginning. After acquisition of data, validate the data ASAP, so that you don't fall don't waste your CPU cycles or GPU, like whatever, like CPU cycles in this case for data pre-processing. Don't waste your resources, time. Just throw the error or just send an email to upstream system administrator that the data quality that we received is not good. We are having like more than 60% of the data is having nulls in a specific field that you were not expecting. So you're validating data. So after ingestion, data validation should be the very first step ideally, so that you don't waste your time. Second, after that data validation is done, then you start looking into data filtering. So you are trying to reduce the size of your data as soon as possible. You are very eager. You are very keen in reducing the size of the data. So you are filtering data, you are deduplicating data, you are doing column pruning. So it's not necessary that if data filtering should happen before data deduplication or so it's like 3 steps. These 3 steps will be done ASAP. So the takeaway is these 3 steps are done ASAP, as soon as possible. So you are very eager in like reducing the size of your data set, because if you are working with large data which is not valid, let's say you are not interested in French tweets, you are interested in English tweets, then why not we filter that data in the very beginning before you actually move to the next step. So let's say you reduce the size, you deduplicated the data. And column pruning means like you are removing unnecessary columns. For example, primary keys. So in machine learning, primary keys don't make sense, right? So why not we remove? Pruning means removing, dropping off those columns which don't make sense. So it's not like let's say you are predicting who will die or who will survive, and let's say you are into insurance premium and you are charging a premium for like a person, and let's say there is no lucky number in machine learning, right? So you cannot say that primary key, the person ID or the user ID is 786 or some number, and then you are saying that person will be very lucky and the chances of survival will be more, right? So there is no lucky number, right? So you have to basically remove the unnecessary columns, remove the primary keys because they don't contribute in most of the scenarios, right? So database primary keys, they don't make sense in machine learning. So we are removing those. Column pruning you are doing. And after that, you are doing some kind of data exploration that we have just seen so many examples. And then you will be doing data missing, handling data missing data. You'll be looking into data consistency. You will be fixing those. You will be fixing outliers or handling outliers. So we will see those techniques. And then there are many other steps. So we will evolve this discussion, right? So now I'm going back to the code. So now how do we do data filtering? That's the question here. And you can actually rename the columns also. You can say that let's say there is like one more step I can add here. Maybe I can just add data, renaming data. So can someone tell me why do we rename data? Why do we rename data? Anyone? What is the advantage of renaming data? Anyone wants to comment on that? Why do we rename data? For easy reference, very good. So that like, you know, like a lot of times it happens that upstream systems are having a different nomenclature to call a particular name. Like let's say we have user underscore ID and you want to rename, or maybe you have gender or zip code. Yeah, this zip code is a very good example. So let's take that example. How do we call zip code? Maybe in some countries we call it zip code and some countries we call it postal code, right? So you want to rename. Let's say your team is basically having this notion. Can you see we are able to rename instead of zip code? Now it is postal code. So you are able to rename, and it gives you the common vocabulary to interact with your team members, right? So that's the idea behind renaming, and it helps, it simplifies, the communication is faster, and it helps a lot. So that's why we are renaming, like one of the steps, renaming columns, I should say renaming columns rather than renaming data. So renaming columns can be another step. So you do it in the beginning, like maybe you can do it here or you can do it here, depending on like how you're. But after, because this is like you have reduced the size, and then you are bringing it like the names as per your requirements, common vocabulary. And once you are done with that, then you will maybe start doing some filtering of data, and you can sort data and other things. Sorting and other things will come later on, because sorting is more related to analysis. But when it comes to data pre-processing, then we will be having the steps related to filtering data. So any questions till now? Because right now I'm just thinking like we are having 10 minutes. So if you have anything, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will show you how do we like how do we maybe filter data. So I'm saying df dot. So we want to filter our data. We want to say that um, um, like we let's say like we have occupation, and I want to filter those people who are having occupation. Df dot occupation, and I can say the person is actually a student, let's say student, right? So can you see I am able to filter my data, and I am able to get only students from my data. This is data filtering. Let's say I'm doing some I'm building a machine learning model, and that is basically only targeting students. I am not interested in other people. So maybe you want to predict the score of the students, right? So you want to filter the data. You want to just get the required data set. You are making data useful for machine learning. So you are getting that students. Or you can say that I am interested in specific, like you can have multiple conditions. You can say or, and you can say this or this, right? So just control C, control V, and you can say I am interested in maybe lawyer, or I am interested in doctor, right? So can you see now lawyers and doctors both are there, right? So these conditions can be added like occupation. So I hope you are getting an idea, like we can do filtering of our data through different ways. We can have multiple conditions, we can have single condition. So depending on your requirement, you can specify that. You can say the people have, like you want to find out like lawyers who are retired. You want to find out like the occupation is this and age is more than 60 years. So you can have that also. You can say the female lawyers or male lawyers. So you can write more conditions here, and you can easily get these details, right? So you are exploring your data. You are right now through this you can filter your data. But if you can, you see right now after doing filtering I got this, but if I run it again, can you see the problem? I am doing filtering, but right now when I see my data, it is not yet filtered. I just applied filtering, but still my data is having other occupations also, right? So for solving this problem, actually the problem that we are getting here is, can you see I renamed to postal code, but in the next step I'm getting zip code again. That means my data or my operation is not basically mutable, or the data frame is not mutable. So data frame is immutable. So what I need to do here is I will show you something interesting. So let's go to the rename method first and then come back to the filtering. So I'm going to rename question mark. So can you see in the rename method, we have in place equals to false. So in place equals to false, you will find this attribute is there in a lot of other methods like sorting, and then you'll find a lot of methods like drop and many methods you will find in place. So in rename, I did not do in place equals to true because by default it is false. So if I do comma in place equals to true, then what it will do, if I just insert or if I run next statement, can you see now it is postal code? Earlier it was not postal code. It is able to change, it is able to mutate it is able to update the data frame when I'm saying in place equals to true. If I don't do it, then by default in place is false, because if I see the documentation, in place is false. That means it will not update the data frame. So this is one way of updating the data frame. Another way can be, you can say df1 equals to another one, you can say df1 equals to df dot rename, and then you start using df1 instead. And if you don't want to pass in place equals to true, and you just want to say control C, and I will just paste it here. This is another way. This is another way. So you are using df1 and start using df1 in the next steps. So this is one way. This is another way to mutate, to update, or to get the latest, like that means like whatever change you are making, you want the updated data frame. So for that you have to do like this. So any questions on this? Are we clear like what exactly I'm saying here?
So Bhavik, pandas data frame are mutable?
This is immutable, so you have to change the argument to in place
Uh-huh.
equal to mutate it, to update it.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Some people say this thing, df equals to, what is the problem? Can you tell me what is the problem with this statement? What is the problem with this statement?
Maybe parallel processing.
Not parallel processing, but side effect. So let's say you are
Is
doing,
it
run this
is
cell
it the DF?
if you run this cell twice, if you run, then it is already renamed, then it will start giving error second time, right? Run it multiple times, run it more than once, then it will complain, then it will throw error. So error. So I can show you like very quickly, like I'm running it. So right now this is just renaming, but in case you are dropping, so right now rename does not make sense, it is very silent. But if you are dropping, let's say you are having an operation which is drop a column, so we will talk about drop when we talk about the missing data handling, but for the time being just understand, like don't do it. It is not a good practice in the code to write like this, because if you're dropping and that column does not exist, then next time when you run this cell, then it will start complaining that cell does not even exist. So I'm deleting this cell using dd, I can delete, right? So I'm deleting this, and this is fine, like I hope you got it. So I just want to quickly check last 4 or 5 minutes. I don't usually cover anything new, so I want to check with you, was today's meetup okay for you? Did you learn something new? And can we continue in the subsequent meetups in the same manner? If you want us to change anything, please do let me know.
Yeah, everything is clear so far for me.
Okay, great. So Diptansh, Harshit, and
Yeah, just one suggestion or request, whatever we can say. If you have some kind of H homework kind of stuff, right? So maybe a blank problem statement, and if we contribute 5 to 10 minutes to explain, because we all are having different approach to solve the problem statement, right? So that will create it a wonderful stuff, right? That's my
sure, sure.
understanding.
Sure, Harshit. We can do that. So uh, we can plan for that in the next meetup. Is that
Sure,
okay?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah, sure, sure.
is a good
Yeah,
feedback.
probably it would take time, but it's yeah, that's something okay. Or it's the walkthrough is okay. It's quite good. Now, what I'm actually more on of is the process itself. With the code, yeah, we can understand that we can learn it, but I'm more on of the,
That
the structure, the logic, or
yeah,
why we do certain things, why do we have to do it.
absolutely. Yeah, so that's why I'm giving so much importance to whiteboarding also. Some people say that it is purely whiteboarding session. It is all theoretical. We wanted
Yeah.
to code. It is like I'm trying to make a balance, which is difficult in data science. But I will just ensure that both things are getting covered in the meetups.
Yes, exactly. Because we also need to know theories in order for us to have a good or a strong foundation in what we are doing, and that's what I'm actually wanting to. Because I can code, yes, though I'm not really that good in coding, but in terms of continuity of my thought process, sometimes I get stuck in a certain part wherein I have to ask what's the next step? Why do I have to do this? What should be the first one?
Yeah.
So in this in this video tutorial, it's good that you are covering the steps on why are we what's the first thing that we have to do and why do we have to do it,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
things gets clarified.
Yeah. So yeah, Michael, syntax you can Google, you can find 10 different ways of doing things. This is my perspective. But actual approach, why we are doing it, and what other approaches exist, and
Yeah.
what should be the right approach. So those things needs to be discussed also, because then we will go to the next level with the meetup. So that's my perspective too.
Yeah. So with the syntax, it's not a problem. It can be, Google, and I did have some background to encoding. So it's just the process that I'm actually aftering, how it's being done, why it's being done, what should be the next. That's all.
Yeah, sure. I got it. Yeah, that is valid point. Thank you for sharing that. So anything else you want to say before we drop off? So we'll be conducting this session again, like in near future. So I'll just see my calendar, but usually we are keeping it once in 2 weeks. Thanks, Tanya.
Bhavuk, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Do we have this in place kind of thing in Spark data frame as well?
In Spark data frame, that is also immutable. Spark data frame also immutable, but we usually do df1 equals to df dot something. Usually we do like that. So in place, I don't think Spark APIs have that. Whenever I use, then I just simply do df1 because I've worked with Spark a lot. So there I'd never use in place equals to true.
So that is even not advisable to basically mutate the data frame in Spark, because we are
Yeah.
talking about the use.
Yeah, RDDs are immutable, and this is because data frames are based on RDDs, and RDDs are immutable. Anyhow, it will create another copy under the hood, behind the scenes. So there is no provision for in place equals to true as such there.
Okay.
Okay, so that is it. Thank you so much for your time. We'll meet soon.
Thanks, Bhavuk.
Thank you.